we're targeting some of these high profile individuals. And I'm curious if you think who would be the next target, and most importantly for America's sake, you got Ivan and then you got Maito. Out of those two, who would be the best target for us in the fact to hopefully dismantle, disrupt? I don't if that even is a thing. You know what I mean? In the cartels, like you said, the next person just steps up. But who do you believe is probably going to be one of the next targets?
Definitely Ivan Archivaldo for the Chapisa. He's now become like that mythic Mencho guy where he's got tunnels built into the mountains of Durango, Chihuahua, Sinaloa, the Golden Triangle, where he moves around. He's got like that Osama bin Laden. He's building that mystique up. He's been on the run now for so long. They almost caught him a few years ago in Culiacan. They did a raid and he escaped like his father in I think they're like not the sewage, but like the aqueduct thing that runs under the city for the rainfall off.
Yeah, like a wash.
Yeah, exactly. And so clearly they were tapped into like the city utilities and shit like that. So I think, he's got a $10 million bounty on his head. So I think just as a figurehead for the United States government, I think he's the guy. And, anything to do with Chapo is like headlines. Yeah. So I think he's probably like a big target they would like to get. It'll be interesting to see who takes Mencho's place. I keep seeing on social media a lot of talk about Doble R, or is it you could pop him, you could look him up. He's El Pelon, they call him.
Yeah, from one of my reports here, it says that Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, El Mencho's stepson.
One of his nicknames is El Pelon because he's got a great hairline, and he was born in Santa Ana, California. He's an American citizen.
Yes, dude. That's exactly where I was going to get to. That is like a lot of talk right now, and which is interesting about that is that he's an American citizen, and I'm very curious to what kind of impacts will that make with United States, with Mexico. And what are your thoughts on that from what you're hearing around, your group of people?
I mean, it makes him ideal as a boss because it means he's already connected in the U.S. Like he's already got, not only does he probably have kids that live in the U.S., Mencho has kids that live in the U.S. He had a brother-in-law that was basically running money laundering operations for him in Riverside, California. So that means he's got access, it makes everything easier. It makes they can manage the businesses here, the safe houses, the moving of money, weapons back to Mexico. And I think they do a lot of that intentionally, to be honest with you. I think people have kids over here more or less suspecting that at least a few of them will go back to Mexico and continue the business.
Yeah, so like from all the years of interviewing people that talk about the cartels, I was always told that, the cartels, the higher ups are always going to be Mexican citizens. And I think that's kind of evolving to now that you've had so many years of people becoming American citizens, the family's kind of all over the place, that it makes sense to start integrating someone who is an American citizen that still connects to the family. What I imagine as someone, like I said, I'm an American in special operations, military, all these things. And I think of someone who's an American citizen, there's so many ways of finding their digital footprint and information. I feel like it'd almost be easier to find an individual like that because there's so much information on them as them being an American citizen. Do you think that would be the same, or they just have the same ability and the money just to be able to escape and kind of go undetected?
Well, they won't be living in the United States.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you're right. It would be much easier to find them if they were in the United States. But the advantage is they can start working young, going back and forth across the border. Like, for instance, one of the guys that we talked to, El Diablo, he has an American passport. He was born in Los Angeles, but grew up in Mexicali. His parents were in the weed business. They worked with Mayo in the early days in the 70s. So he was, from a teenager, he was driving loads of weed across the border, heroin. And it's just easier because you have an American passport. It's just the smuggling is easier, right? You look less conspicuous. So maybe they start off doing that, and then they just meet tons of people. But the access is just so much greater when you have an American passport. So you meet distributors in Los Angeles, in Phoenix. You meet people that can sell you their house to use it as the end of a drug tunnel, right? You can set up shell companies, having people buy real estate, right? You know, it's about making cells. Everything is a cell and a node in a bigger game. So I think and when you're born in America, you speak more English. You're more westernized. You kind of think in it's going to be racist, but a little less primitive way. You know, these old school Mexican guys, right? Like the culture's it's not as international as, you know, one of their children that did grow up in Los Angeles. You know, it just kind of gives you, because it is a global economy now, it just gives you kind of a more global outlook.
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting is that the Americans have an ability to get intel on individuals. They can find anyone at any time. I mean, you know, for the most part, it almost feels like we're spacing out these captures or these, you know, targeted hits on people for whether it be on the Mexican side, just kind of space it out. But I don't know why America just doesn't go and like pick them all off. Now, I'm not saying like that's what they need to do, but I'm saying if their goal is to kind of disrupt, to destroy the cartels, I don't think they're too far off from getting information on every single one of these top guys, going ahead and taking them out. Why do you think America's not doing that?
Let me ask you this before I try to answer that. Do you think that they could locate a guy in the most remote mountainous region of Sinaloa? Like, could they locate if they wanted to Ivan Archibaldo?
I don't know. You know, it really comes down to, like I said, the digital footprint and kind of like, same as El Mencho. He was hard to find for a long time, and they found him it seems like they found him right when they needed to or when they wanted to, right? Almost like a timing thing. It made sense to get him at this moment. And so knowing how intel works, knowing how the CIA is, knowing how everything goes with information, I don't know if the cartel has enough ability to hide them that well. I almost feel like we can get anyone at any point and just choose not to. Like it's almost like a strategy behind it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, since Trump took office, we know that there's planes taking pictures, satellite planes circling these regions, taking photos, right? Gathering intel like that. I think in the case of Mencho, he had the police and the military so paid off that he was hiding in plain sight.
Got it.
So he was slipping in a way, you know, like that's when you hear their communications. Exactly. When you hear their communications on the radio, when they realize they're being ambushed, they're like, fuck, they betrayed us. They betrayed us because we paid them all this money and they couldn't even believe it. They're like, they're breaking the agreement we had, you know? So, I think that a guy like, you know, Ivan or whoever's takes Mencho's place, I think they're not going to fall for that anymore, at least while Trump's in office, you know, at least maybe until the politics change. I think they're just going to stay out of sight.
The older I get, the more I realize that sleep isn't a luxury, it is a maintenance. If I don't recover, I'm not at my best, period. I don't usually talk about mattresses, but I've been sleeping on a GHOSTBED Luxe Hybrid for a few weeks now, and it's awesome. What I've noticed first was my support. My back pain has improved. I'm a big boy, and so I need that support. It's American-made, family-owned, and a lot of the team behind it are veterans, and I respect them. They've got a 101-night trial and a 20-year warranty so that you can actually try it and see if it works for you. If you're not sure which model fits, their mattress quiz makes it easy. To check out GHOSTBED, go to ghostbed.com/ironclad. You'll get an extra 15% off automatically with code IRONCLAD. Thanks again to GHOSTBED for partnering with us.